let's start with the very first tip, which is to incorporate periodization. When done correctly, this is one of the most powerful things you can do to improve your muscular strength and size consistently. In a nutshell, periodization is the systematic breakdown of your training plan over the course of time, and it'll include micro, meso, and macro cycles, which will essentially break down your training plan into weeks, months, and years. Let's move on to the second tip: increase meal frequency. For fat loss, meal frequency doesn't matter that much, but building muscle requires a lot of calories. Especially if you're struggling with building muscle, you're gonna need to eat a lot of food. The only way that you're gonna be able to eat enough throughout the entire day is by eating more often. As you build more muscle, the only way you're going to be able to continue building muscle is by continuing to up the amount of clean food that you're consuming throughout the day.
थर्ड टिप जो आप सभी को फॉलो करनी चाहिए वो है कैलोरी सरप्लस। अब इससे आप मतलब समझ ही गए होंगे कि अगर आप एक्चुअली में सीरियस हो मसल बिल्डिंग को लेके तो आपको बहुत खाना पड़ेगा। बहुत मीन्स आपको दिन में 6 से 8 मील करनी पड़ेगी। हर मील में पोर्शन जो है वो ज़्यादा रखना पड़ेगा, तभी आप मसल बिल्ड कर पाओगे।
Let's move on to tip number 3, which is to increase your carb consumption. This is a very important piece of advice that most guys are not following. Most beginners are obsessed with protein consumption, which leads them to completely ignore the other essential macronutrients. Of course, protein is important, but 3 to 6 ounces of a protein source per meal should be enough. Carbs you're gonna wanna increase higher, especially if you're a hard gainer. If you're a natural trying to build more muscle, it's critical for you to focus on increasing intensity over time. The best way to increase intensity is by progressively lifting heavier and heavier weights. You have to focus on incrementally increasing the amount of weight that you put on the bar or on dumbbells. The next tip is to increase training frequency. This means that you want to increase the amount of days per week that you're actually hitting the same muscle group or the same muscle groups. Of course, you want at least 48 hours of rest before hitting the same muscle group again, and some people need even more time for full recovery. However, you'll be able to double your volume by working your chest, for example, twice a week instead of just once a week. Try hitting each of your muscle groups at least twice a week. To accomplish this, you would want to do this in a split training style. And this is actually my next tip. For muscle building purposes, to strictly gain size, you're going to be better off with a split training routine rather than a full body routine. Great split training routines include combining chest, shoulders, and triceps. Then on a separate day, you could do back and biceps. And then on a separate day, you would do legs. Split training is going to work better because you have more of an opportunity to focus in on one muscle group or on the muscle groups that you're trying to break down and completely break them down. And this is exactly why you're going to want to follow this next tip, which is to go right to the borderline of failure with every single set. Ideally, if you're working out very often, you don't want to fail on every one of your exercises, but on key compound lifts, the lifts that you're trying to get your strength up in, you want to spend at least a couple sets hitting failure. Tip number 9 is to stick to mostly compound exercises involving free weights, or if you must, use a machine that has a free range of motion. You don't want the majority of your workout to be made up of the selectorizer equipment because all those machines are locked into a range of motion. You won't get the kind of results you can get from using barbells, dumbbells, and just free range equipment if you're using selectorizer machinery. Moving on, we have our 8th tip, which is to incorporate training styles like supersets and drop sets. A superset is when you do 2 exercises back to back with no break. And for muscle building purposes, you'll typically want to focus on the same muscle group for both of the exercises that you select. With drop sets, you start with your heaviest weight, and after being right at the point of failure, you rack the weight, drop a little bit of weight off the bar, and continue for more reps.
रिकवरी, एक्सरसाइज करना, अच्छी डाइट लेना सब सही है, बट आप जिम में मसल को ब्रेक डाउन करते हो। मसल बिल्डिंग शुरू होता है जिम के बाद जब आप रिकवरी करते हो, जिसके लिए आपको रात को 8 घंटे डीप स्लीप लेना बहुत ज़रूरी है। उससे आपका टेस्टोस्टेरोन लेवल अच्छे रहते हैं और आपकी बॉडी में जीएच की प्रोडक्शन बहुत अच्छी होती है, जिसकी वजह से आपको मसल ग्रोथ में हेल्प मिलती है। 5th टिप जो मैं आप सभी लोगों को देना चाहूँगा वो है कार्डियो इज इंपॉर्टेंट। बहुत सारे लोग ऐसा बोलते हैं कि मसल बिल्डिंग के टाइम पे आपको कार्डियो नहीं करना चाहिए, बट मैं ऐसा मानता हूं आपको कार्डियो करना चाहिए। बस आपको इतना ध्यान रखना है कि आपको मॉडरेट पेस कार्डियो करना चाहिए। थोड़ी साइकिलिंग कर लो या मॉर्निंग वॉक कर सकते हो, दैट टू 20 मिनट्स, हफ्ते में 3 से 5 सेशन।
Muscles need your constant attention because the way you treat them on a daily basis determines whether they will wither or grow. Say you're standing in front of a door, ready to pull it open. Your brain and muscles are perfectly poised to help you achieve this goal. First, your brain sends a signal to motor neurons inside your arm. When they receive this message, they fire, causing muscles to contract and relax, which pull on the bones in your arm and generate the needed movement. The bigger the challenge becomes, the bigger the brain's signal grows, and the more motor units it rallies to help you achieve your task. Genetic factors also play a role in one's ability to grow muscle. Some people have more robust immune reactions to muscle damage and are better able to repair and replace damaged muscle fibers, increasing their muscle building potential. The body responds to the demands you place on it. If you tear your muscles up, eat right, rest, and repeat, you'll create the conditions to make your muscles as big and strong as possible. It is with muscles as it is with life. Meaningful growth requires challenge and stress.
The last tip is in the realm of supplementation. You will not need most of the supplements that are advertised for gaining muscle. The only supplements that you're really gonna want are gonna be a protein powder to take after your workouts, a good pre-workout made up of natural ingredients, and creatine. Those are the only supplements that you'll really need for building muscle.